Hello, in this video I am going to explain how to answer the questions in the Edexcel GCSE Maths Paper 2 from what would have been in June 2020, the foundation tier. The purpose of this video is for your learning and understanding, not just the answers. There are of course other videos out there. Write 0.37 as a fraction. For a question like this, I like to write out my place value headings, so I have units, tenths and hundredths. So 0.37 is equal to 37 hundredths. And for 1 mark, we only need to write out the fraction. Write 29,381 correct to the nearest thousand. Again, I am going to write this out with the place value headings. So we have units, tens, hundreds, thousands, and 10 thousands. Because it said nearest thousand, I am going to draw a wall after the thousand and underline the 3. That is the digit we focus on. We can ignore the rest. Because it's a 3, we need to round down. So our answer is 29,000. We must have those 3 zeros to give the 9 the value of 1,000. All we need to write for 1 mark is this answer. Simplify 3e, subtract e, add 4e. I am going to rewrite this as 3e, subtract 1e, add 4e. Now we have 3e subtract 1e, which gives us 2e. Add on the 4e and we have 6e. For 1 mark, we just need to write 6e. Write 1/4 as a percentage. You may already know the equivalent percentage. If you do not, you can first convert it into an equivalent fraction where the denominator is 100. 4 multiplied by 25 gives us 100, so we need to do 1 multiplied by 25. So our numerator is 25 over 100. The question does ask for a percentage, so the answer is 25%. Again, because it's a 1 mark question, we can just write the answer. Here is a list of numbers. From the numbers in the list, write down a cube number. I am going to start by listing out my cube numbers, starting from 1. 1 cubed is 1 multiplied by 1 multiplied by 1, and that gives us 1. 2 cubed is 2 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 2, and that gives us 8. 3 cubed is 3 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 3, and we get 27. 4 cubed is 4 multiplied by 4 multiplied by 4, we get 64. I can see that the greatest number here is 36, so there is no need to continue. The only cube number in this list is 27. And for 1 mark, we just need to write 27. Liz is watching a film at the cinema. The film started at 14:30. The film is 105 minutes long. When the film ends, Liz takes 20 minutes to get to the bus stop. A bus leaves the bus stop at 16:45. Does Liz get to the bus stop in time to get this bus? You must show all your working. I'm going to use a number line method to add on time. We start with 14:30. I'm going to add on 30 minutes. That takes us to 15 o'clock. I can add on another 60 minutes, and that takes us to 16 o'clock. In total, we have added 90 minutes. The film is 105 minutes long, so we can add on another 15 minutes. And that takes us to 16:15. Now we have 1 mark. It says that Liz takes 20 minutes to get to the bus stop, so I have 16:15. I'm going to add on 20 minutes, and that takes us to 1635. Now we have our second mark. To finish, we must give a statement and back it up with our figures. Liz gets to the bus stop in time. She has 10 minutes to spare. And now we have our third mark. Farhad, George and Tom each did a test. Here are their marks for the test. George drew this bar chart to show the marks they got. The bar chart is not fully correct. Write down 2 things that are wrong with George's bar chart. We can write 2 of the following. No label for marks. Notice the y-axis does not have a label. Or we could write the scale for marks is not consistent. Notice over here it jumps from 0 to 71, so we can write that. Or we can write Tom's bar is wider than the rest. We get 1 mark for each thing that is wrong. So if we have 2 points that are wrong, we would get 2 marks. ABC is a straight line. Work out the size of the angle marked X. To work out X, we need to do 180 degrees subtract 150 degrees. That gets us 30 degrees. And for writing 30 degrees, we have 1 mark. Part B, it says, give a reason for your answer. Here we must write angles on a straight line add up to 180 degrees. You must use words such as add up to or total or sum for that second mark. The diagram below is wrong. Explain why. To start with, I'm going to write out 90 add 280 is equal to 370. Then I'm going to say angles about a point add up to 360 degrees, not 370 degrees. And now we have 1 mark. This scale can be used to change between kilometers and miles. Use the scale to change 40 kilometers to miles. We need to go to 40 kilometers on the scale, draw a line, and we can see that 40 kilometers is equal to 25 miles. And that is all we need to write for the 1 mark. Here is an approximate rule to change from kilometers to miles. Use this approximate rule to change 40 kilometers to miles. So I'm going to start by writing 40. It says divide the distance in kilometers by 10. So we need to divide by 10. And then it says, and then multiply by 6. For writing this out, we have 1 mark. Now we need to work it out. 40 divided by 10 is 4. 4 multiplied by 6 is 24. For writing 24 miles as our final answer, we have our second mark. Compare your answer to part B with your answer to part A. We can say the answers are quite similar. Although part B, remember that was 24, is 1 less than part A, which was 25. And now we have 1 mark. Solve 3m is equal to 36. 3m is 3 multiplied by m. We need to do the inverse to solve. Divide by 3 on both sides. M is equal to 12. And for 1 mark, we can just write m is equal to 12. Solve 7 subtract x is equal to 3. We can think of this as x is equal to 7 subtract 3. That means x is equal to 4. For 1 mark, we just need to write x equals 4. Here is a cuboid. Work out the volume of the cuboid. I am going to treat this cuboid like any other prism. So for volume, I am going to do cross-sectional area, CSA, multiplied by the length. The cross-sectional area is this face over here. We could have done any of the faces, but because this is my cross-sectional area, the length must be this 15. The cross-section is a rectangle, so I am going to do 10 multiplied by 4, and the length, like we've mentioned, is 15. Now we have 1 mark. That gets us 600, which is our second mark, and for that final mark, we must give the units, which is cubic centimeters. For having all of that, we have 3 marks. Lucy uses a code to open a lock. The code is a letter followed by a 2-digit number. The letter is L or U. The number is a prime number between 20 and 30. Write down all the possibilities for Lucy's code. The only prime numbers between 20 and 30 are 23 and 29. So for her code, she could have L23 or L29. Now we can move on to U. She could have U23 or U29. For having all 4, we would get 2 marks. For having 2 or 3, we would have 1 mark. A machine fills bags with sweets. There are 4,275 sweets. There are 28 sweets in each full bag. The machine filled as many bags as possible. How many sweets are left? We need to work out how many bags can be filled. So we first need to do 4,275 divided by 28. We get 152.678 and it goes on. However, we can't have a decimal number of bags, so the full number of bags is 152. For writing out the calculation, we have 1 mark. Remember, we cannot fill in 153 bags because we do not have enough sweets for that. Step 2, we need to work out how many sweets have been used to fill up 152 bags. So we will do 152 multiplied by 28. That gets us 4,256. Now we have a second mark. Step 3, the question says how many sweets are left. So we need to work out the difference between the number we started with and the number that are in the bags. So 4,275 subtract 4,256. For writing 19, we get our third mark. The table gives information about the number of goals scored by each of 3 teams. Draw an accurate pie chart for this information. A pie chart consists of sectors. We need the size of each angle of the sectors that represent the teams. So I need another column called angles. We also need the total. We need the total goals, which is 120, and we need the total angles, which is 360 degrees. To go from 120 to 360, we need to multiply by 3. Do the same above. And now we have 1 mark. Our angles should be 150 degrees, 135 degrees, and 75 degrees. All of them should add up to 360. We now have our second mark. When drawing the pie chart, make sure you place your protractor so that the 0 is in line with the vertical line given, and the center of the protractor is in line with the center that they have given us. Because of the way I have placed my protractor, I must use the outside numbers. Using the outside numbers, find and mark 150 degrees. Now I can move my protractor. I need to get my ruler and join up the center with the mark I've drawn. I can now label this C for city. Now I'm going to get my protractor again and place it with the new line that I've drawn. Again, using the outside numbers, this time I need to mark 135 degrees. Move the protractor. Again, get out your ruler. With your ruler, join up the center with the new mark. And that new sector can now be labelled as R for rovers. That last sector must be united, and it should be 75 degrees. For drawing an accurate pie chart that's labelled, we now have our third mark. T equals 3x add 4y. Work out the value of t when x equals 5 and y equals -7. So we are going to substitute in those values into the formula. We have 3 multiplied by 5, add 4 multiplied by -7. That gives us 15 add -28. For writing either one of these lines, we would get 1 mark. We can type this into our calculator, or you can work this out mentally, and we get -13. And that is our second mark. The question goes on to say, work out the value of y when t equals 38 and x equals 6. Again, we are going to substitute what we know. So we have 38 is equal to 3 multiplied by 6, add 4y. That gives us 38 is equal to 18, add 4y. Now we have 1 mark. We need to solve this equation. I am going to use the flowchart method. We have y. The first thing that's happened is it's been multiplied by 4, and then we added 18. That then gives us 38. To solve, we must go backwards and do the inverse. We have to subtract 18 and then divide by 4. 38 subtract 18 is 20. 20 divided by 4 is 5. For writing y is equal to 5, we now have our second mark. An exam has 2 papers, paper 1 and paper 2. Paper 1 has 60 marks. Paper 2 has 90 marks. The pass mark is 2/3 of the total number of marks. Danielle gets 70% of the marks for paper 1. How many of the marks for paper 2 must Danielle get in order to get the pass mark. Step 1, we need to work out the total marks available. We need to do 60, add 90. We get 150. Step 2, we need to work out the pass mark. We need to work out 2/3 of 150. That means 150 divided by 3 for 1/3 and then multiplied by 2. That is 50 multiplied by 2 and we get 100. Now we have 1 mark. Step 3, we need to work out the mark that Danielle got in paper 1. We need to work out 70% of 60. So I will do 0.7 multiplied by 60 and that gets me 42. Now we have a second mark. Step 4, we need to work out the marks needed for paper 2. We need to do the pass mark, which is 100, subtract the number of marks Danielle got in paper 1. For writing this out, we have a third mark. For writing 58, we now have a fourth mark. Scott wants to make orange juice. He is going to buy boxes of oranges. There are 24 oranges in each box of oranges. 30 oranges make 2 liters of orange juice. Scott needs to buy enough oranges to make 8 liters of orange juice. Work out the number of boxes of oranges that Scott needs to buy. You must show all your working. We need to work out how many oranges are needed for the amount of liters that Scott wants to make. 30 oranges are needed for 2 liters. Scott is making 8 liters. 2 multiplied by 4 gives us 8. We need to do the same on this side. 30 multiplied by 4 is 120. Now we have 1 mark. Step 2, we need to work out the number of boxes. So we have oranges and boxes. We know there are 24 oranges in one box. Scott needs 120 oranges. If we go across, we need to divide by 24. Do the same over here. Now we have a second mark. 120 divided by 24 is 5. Scott needs to buy 5 boxes. And for writing this, we now have a third mark. Scott also buys 1,260 apples and 280 bananas. Write down the ratio of the number of apples that Scott buys to the number of bananas that he buys. Give your ratio in its simplest form. So we have apples and bananas. 1,260 apples and 280 bananas. Both numbers end in 0, so we can divide both of them by 10. We now have 126 to 28. This would get us 1 mark. Both of these numbers are even numbers, so we can divide by 2. We now have 63 to 14. This would also get us just 1 mark. Both of these numbers can be divided by 7. Now we get 9 to 2. Because we cannot simplify any further, this is our second mark. Describe fully the single transformation that maps triangle A onto triangle B. A single transformation could be a translation, or a reflection, or a rotation. We can see that triangle A has been turned upside down, so it must be a rotation of 180 degrees. Now we have 1 mark. We also need to find the center of rotation. As it is a 180-degree turn, we can match up corresponding points with a ruler. Where they intersect is the center of rotation. I'm going to match up this corner over here with this one. Join them up with a ruler. Now choose another set of points. So I'm going to use this corner, which must match up with this corner. Again, join it up with a ruler. I can see where they intersect. That means the center of rotation is at -1, 0. So to finish off, and for my second mark, I will say about -1, 0. Altogether, we now have 2 marks. Adam, Linda and Ritus share an amount of money. Linda gets 3 times as much money as Ritus gets. Linda gets half as much money as Adam gets. What fraction of the amount of money does Linda get? I'm going to set this out a bit like a ratio. Looking at this line over here, I am going to say that Ritus gets X amount. If Linda gets 3 times as much, Linda must have 3x. Looking at this line, Linda gets half as much money as Adam. 3x is half of what Adam got, so Adam must have 6x. The total of all of these shares is 10x. Now I have 1 mark. Before continuing, I am going to divide everything by x. So now I have 6, 3, 1. The total shares is 10. The fraction then must be out of 10. We are only looking at Linda's amount. Linda got 3 out of a possible 10. And now we have our second mark. Pens and pencils are sold in a shop. 12 pencils cost £1.80. The ratio of the cost of a pen to the cost of a pencil is 7:3. Work out the cost of 5 pens. This line of information is going to be my step 1. We have pencils and we have the cost. 12 pencils cost £1.80. Always start with what you know. We want the cost of 1 pencil. To go from 12 to 1, we need to divide by 12. Do the same on this side. We get 0.15. That means the cost of 1 pencil is 15 pence. Now we have our first mark. I'm going to use this as my step 2. We know that the cost of pens to the cost of pencils is 7:3. We know the cost of a pencil is 0.15. 3 multiplied by something is 0.15. I'm going to do that over here. If I type that into my calculator, I get 0.05. So 3 multiplied by 0.05 is 0.15. Now I have a second mark. Do the same on the other side. 7 multiplied by 0.05 is 0.35. So the cost of 1 pen is 0.35 pounds. Now we have a third mark. This is my third step. We have pence and we have the cost. 1 pen is 0.35. We want the cost of 5 pence. 1 multiplied by 5 gets us 5. Do the same on the other side. That is 1.75. So the answer is £1.75. And that is our fourth mark. Write 84 as a product of its prime factors. We need to draw a prime factor tree. Two numbers that multiply to give me 84 are 12 and 7. 7 is a prime number, so I will circle it. 12 is not prime, so I need two numbers again that multiply to give me 12 this time. I can use 3 and 4. 3 is a prime number, so I will circle it. 4 is not prime. Two numbers that multiply to give me 4 are 2 and 2. 2 is a prime number, so I will circle it. Now I have 1 mark. The question says to write it as a product. Product means multiplication. So as a final answer, we must write it out as a multiplication. 2 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 7. And now we have a second mark. Find the lowest common multiple of 60 and 84. I am going to use the upside down bus stop method. A common factor of 60 and 84 is 12. 60 divided by 12 is 5. 84 divided by 12 is 7. 5 and 7 do not have any more common factors other than 1, so we can stop there. For LCM, we need to multiply these outside numbers that make the L shape. So we are going to do 12 multiplied by 5 multiplied by 7. Now we have 1 mark. If we type that into the calculator, we get 420, and that is our second mark. The universal set is 1, 2, 3 all the way up to 10. Set A is even numbers. Set B is factors of 10. Part A, complete the Venn diagram for this information. First, I am going to write out the numbers in set A. 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. The numbers in set B are factors of 10, so that's 1, 2, not 3, not 4, 5, and then 10. Now I can fill in the Venn diagram. Always start by completing the intersection. So what number is in both of the lists? 2 is in both of them, so I'm going to write in 2 and cross it out from both lists and the universal set. 10 is also in both of them, and now I'm going to cross that out from both lists and the universal set. Now I have 1 mark. I am now going to focus on set A. We have 4, 6, and 8. I'm going to cross it out from set A. I'm also going to cross it out from the universal set. Now I have a second mark. The numbers in set B are 1 and 5. Cross them out, and cross them out from the universal set. We also need to write the numbers that are not in set A and are not in set B. That is 3, 7, and 9. So that's 3, 7, and 9. Now we have our third mark for completing the Venn diagram. The question goes on to say, a number is chosen at random from the universal set. Find the probability that this number is in the set A intersection B. Probability means we need to have a fraction or a percentage or a decimal for an answer. I am going to write it as a fraction. Because it's going to be chosen from the universal set, the denominator must be 10, and that gets us 1 mark. It says, find the probability that this number is in the set A intersection B. There are 2 numbers in that intersection, so our numerator is 2, and that is our second mark. Altogether, we have 5 marks. Carlo puts tins into small boxes and into large boxes. He puts 6 tins into each small box. He puts 20 tins into each large box. Carlo puts a total of 3,000 tins into the boxes, so that number of tins in small boxes to number of tins in large boxes is 2 to 3. Carlo says that less than 30% of the boxes filled with tins are large boxes. Is Carlo correct? You must show all your working. For step 1, I'm going to use the ratio given. We have tins in small boxes to tins in large boxes. I'm also going to have a heading called total. The ratio is 2 to 3, and that adds up to 5 parts. We know that there are a total of 3,000 tins. To go from 5 to 3,000, we need to multiply by 600. Do the same to the 2. Do the same to the 3. Now we have our first mark. We know there must be 1,200 tins in small boxes and 1,800 tins in large boxes. Now we have our second mark. Step 2, we need to work out the number of boxes needed. So we have number of small boxes. We have 1,200 tins altogether in small boxes, but each box can only contain 6. So we divide that by 6, and we have 200 small boxes. Now we need to do the same but for large boxes. So number of large boxes, we have a total of 1,800 tins. Each large box can contain 20 tins, so we divide by 20. We have 90 large boxes. For having 200 small boxes or 90 large boxes, we now have our third mark. Step 3, we need to work out the total number of boxes. So that is 200, add 90. So Carlo needs a total of 290 boxes. Now for step 4, we can work out the percentage of large boxes. We are going to do 90 divided by the total, which is 290, and then we need to multiply by 100 to turn that into a percentage. That gets us 31.03 something 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 %. Now we have our fourth mark. Now we need to give a final statement. So that can be our fifth step. Carlo is wrong. Remember, we must always justify, because 31.03% is more than 30%. And for writing this final statement with a justification, we have our final and fifth mark. Part A, complete the table of values for y equals 5 subtract x cubed. We need to substitute all of these x values given into this equation. So we have y equals 5 subtract and in brackets -2 cubed. Type it exactly like this into your calculator and you should get 13. Do the same for the 0 and we get 5. Do the same for the 1 and we get 4. And lastly, do the same for the 2 and we get -3. If 2 or 3 of our values are correct, we would get 1 mark. If all of them are correct, we would get 2 marks. Moving on to part B. On the grid, draw the graph of y equals 5 subtract x cubed for values of x from -2 to 2. We need to use our table to help. These are all coordinate points. Starting with the first one, -2, 13. Go to -2 on the x-axis, and for 13, we need to go between 12 and 14. Draw an X or a dot, move on to -1, 6, and then 0, 5, and then 1, 4, and lastly 2, -3. If we plot all of them correctly, we would get 1 mark. Lastly, we need to join it all up. We must make sure it's a smooth curve, not with a ruler. For making it look as smooth as possible, we would now have our second mark. Work out the value of x. Give your answer correct to 1 decimal place. The question involves 1 angle and 2 lengths, even though one of them is missing. That means this question is a trigonometry question. According to trigonometry, we have labels such as hypotenuse, opposite, and adjacent. According to this triangle and the way it's been set out, our labels must be opposite for x and hypotenuse for the 178. The trig ratio that has opposite and hypotenuse is SO. That means we are using the sine ratio. We are working out the opposite, so I will cross out the O. That means the formula is opposite equals sine theta multiplied by hypotenuse. Now I can substitute in my values. X is equal to sine 34 multiplied by 178. Now I have 1 mark. When typing this into the calculator, remember to use brackets. We get 99.536 and it goes on. The question says round to 1 decimal place. I am going to draw a wall after the first decimal place, which is 5. That 3 here means I must round down. So the value of x to 1 decimal place is 99.5. And that is my second mark. Here are 2 vectors. Find 2a subtract 3b as a column vector. I am going to write 2 multiplied by 3, 4, subtract 3 multiplied by 5, -2. Now I can write 6, 8, subtract 15, -6. Or if I want to, I can write 6 subtract 15, 8 subtract -6. Either one of these lines would get me 1 mark. If I work that out, I get -9 and 14. Now I have my second mark. The diagram shows a right-angled triangle and a quarter circle. The right-angled triangle ABC has angle ABC is equal to 90 degrees. The quarter circle has center C and radius CB. Work out the area of the quarter circle. Give your answer correct to 3 significant figures. You must show all your working. I am going to annotate the diagram. The quarter circle has center C and the radius CB is going to be labelled R. If CB is the radius, then CD must also be the radius. If we focus on the triangle ABC, it's a right-angled triangle and we are working with 3 lengths. That means we can apply Pythagoras. We are working out a shorter length, so we will say R squared is equal to 9 squared subtract 6 squared. Remember, when you work out the shorter length, it's always subtraction. Now we have 1 mark. R squared is equal to 45. If we want just R, we need to square root 45. Because this is not my final answer, I am not going to work out what this is equal to as a decimal. Now I have a second mark. Step 2, I want to work out the area of the quarter circle. The area of a circle is pi multiplied by r squared. Because we have a quarter, we need to divide by 4. I'm now going to say pi multiplied by r squared. Remember, r squared is this value over here, so we can just say pi multiplied by 45, all divided by 4. Now we have a third mark. If you type that in, it comes out as 35.342 and it goes on and on. The question says to round it to 3 significant figures. We have 1, 2, 3, draw the wall. 4 is less than 5, so we will say the answer is 35.3 square meters. And for writing this, we now have a 4th mark. Each exterior angle of a regular polygon is 15 degrees. Work out the number of sides of the polygon. The formula we need to use is exterior angles is equal to 360 divided by n. This can only be used when it says regular polygon. Substitute in what we know. We know the exterior angle is 15, 360 is 360, and we do not know the number of sides. We can rearrange this by saying n is equal to 360 divided by 15. Now we have 1 mark. If we type that into our calculator, we get 24, and that is our second mark. Write down the gradient of the line with equation y equals 2x add 3. To work out the gradient, or the y-intercept, the equation of a line must always be in the form y equals mx add c. M, the number that x is being multiplied by, is always the gradient. C is the y-intercept. So where does it cross the y-axis? In this question, we have been asked for the gradient, so we are looking at the number in front of the x, the coefficient of x. So our gradient is 2. And for 1 mark, we just need to write 2. The gradient is not 2x. We only use the coefficient. Thank you for watching. Have a lovely day.